Hi, this is Catherine, and welcome back to Taking Tea with Catherine. So, I am drinking the same tea as I did in my last video because I'm filming around the same time I did my last video. I only changed them. I've wrapped up a little bit with a scarf. What a big change. I hope it looks nice and elegant. I think I look a little bit like Gandhi, but you know, that's okay because one of these books is actually mentions Gandhi. So yeah, we're keeping on theme. But yeah, so lemon ginger. But you know what? Again, going back to tea and mystery. Last month I did it, and it was tisane based because of Poirot, and I have I've wed. Yeah, we're married. I've read Poirot again this month, so we're gonna talk about all the tea and all the mystery that I've had in September. If that makes any sense. I've read 4 books of mystery, or you know, not all detective because some of these people are not detectives, or some of them are amateur detectives. But that's okay because you know I like a little variety. I'm gonna try to keep it in order. I think. The first book I finished is a Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. I don't know why. Well, there's a little bit in the back, so maybe that's what it is. You ever start with book 2 and you're like, oh man, am I going to get spoiled? But then you're not really spoiled, so you're like, man, good job. Well, this is The Sentence is Death by Anthony Horowitz. And it's the second book in his sort of, I think it's going to be a series, maybe a bit of a trilogy. But I know he's going on a little bit. And why am I looking down? It's because I had to remember the name of the detective in this book. And it's not one of those names that just sticks in my head for some reason. Although I've always liked I always thought I'd change my last name to Thorne one day. Because my name is Tom. Last name is Tom. And it sometimes looks like Thorne. So I thought, let's just stop. But anyway, the premise behind this is that, and behind this is the second book of this premise, is that Anthony Horowitz is writing a fiction, you know, but it's supposed to be like his own little story, as if he is hanging out and following around and writing about a detective who is examining and trying to solve a murder mystery. And it's that's kind of cool because first of all, I do like most of Anthony Horowitz's books, and I like a lot of what he's written for TV. I've mentioned this before. I'm a big fan of Foyle's War, and the fact that he actually incorporates filming Foyle's War and some of the troubles that he has with it in this is fantastic. And there's also talks about other things. He talks a lot about Sherlock Holmes, other mysteries, so it's just delightful. To me, not everyone, I think. You know, everything has mixed reviews. Some people think it's a little much. His detective Hawthorne is not entirely likable. I think he does that on purpose, but sometimes I think it's a bit much. There's methods that he uses to investigate that I just don't like. So that's the only thing I don't like of the story. I don't hate the detective, but I don't know. And he's not really a police detective. He's a former police detective, but he's called in to help out with certain things. So there are other police detectives involved here that are not very into this whole situation. So they have to contend with that. And it's kind of like, it's like dealing with these other, you know, rival sort of detectives like Lestrade, but not as nice. So I've always kind of liked Lestrade. So this is kind of interesting. A divorce lawyer gets killed. You know, so that automatically opens up a bunch of suspects. And there are all kinds of people who could have done it. There's the ex-wife of the person that this lawyer represents. There's other people that, you know, were involved in a death that he was also involved with that might have issues. All kinds of folks that they run into. And you say, well, this guy, he wasn't a terrible person, but, you know, there's a lot of suspects. And so Anthony Horowitz's character is sort of like a Watson. And although I think he does it, he's not really bumbling. It's just that he's not actually a detective. He writes detective stories, so it's very, very metafiction. But I like it because I've always kind of liked a little bit of a insider view. He doesn't get too much into his personal life, but he brings it up a little bit, and it's in London most of it, which I love. So it's a good book. It runs along pretty well. I have to say, although I didn't understand everything about it, I did kind of guess who did it when the character was introduced. It just clicked with me, but I didn't know exactly what it was. So I didn't think it was too obvious. It was just that I saw a pattern in my head, and that was good. I'm no genius. But I recommend it if you like anything that he's written before, whether it's TV or books. I think it's a good read, and a pretty quick read. A little violent occasionally, but not terribly. I mean, it's a murder mystery. What do you expect? Great scene in Daunt Books, which is a bookshop that I really like in London. So, yeah, very good. Okay, so now we're going to move on to another one that I briefly mentioned recently. And this is The Tea House Detective by Baroness Orczy. And she wrote a number of stories, kind of like short stories of detection. This is about a woman who's like a journalist, and although she doesn't do a lot of journaling, her name's Polly. Journaling? She goes to this tea shop. There was a chain of them called ABC Tea Shop, and this one is off the Strand in London, again London, and meets an old man in the corner, because this is this one, tea shop detective, the old man in the corner, who just sits there. And by the way, I was a little disappointed because there was no tea. He orders basically cheesecake with a glass of milk, which is kind of gross, especially if you're lactose intolerant. Which I may be, it may not be, I don't know. But either way, it kind of grossed me out a little bit. But either way, he just tells her stories that most of them she knew a little bit about cases that have been in the news, different crimes all over the UK, and what happened. And he basically solves them in ways that the police have never thought of. He solves the mystery. He knows who actually did it, but he never does anything about it, which is a little bit annoying. I'm like, so you know someone getting away with murder, theft, other crimes, and you're not doing anything about it. And he shows up at different court appearances, whatever. It's a bizarre thing. It's not a terrible story, but I feel like I was a little taken in by the cover and by the excitement of the writer, and I don't know. It leans more of a 3-star for me, maybe 3.5 if I'm feeling charitable. Also, it kind of ends, and I don't want to say why, but it kind of ends in a cliffhanger, a surprise, and then you say, "Oh, I gotta read the next book to find out what happens." So I went to the bookshop and just looked at it to start it, just to have a look. It's a green copy, which actually looks very well with this copy, if it doesn't fade like this one did. But and it just keeps going, and I was like, but what happened at the ending? But doesn't continue? What? So that kind of, I don't know. I'm not gonna say I don't recommend it, but it's not as good as like Sherlock Holmes. It's not as good as a lot of detective stories, or even like Agatha Christie's average ones. You know what I mean? So, not a hate, but not thrilled that I paid full price for that paperback. I'll put it that way. So now, a slight variation, very big variation actually. I can't believe I finally got around to reading the Widows of Malabar Hill last month, and next thing you know, I went to the library and saw the next book in the series, The Setapur Moonstone, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, by Sujata Massey, and it's another Perveen mystery, Mystry, not mystery, and she is a lady attorney in Bombay in the early 20s, which is not a very common thing. She's one of the first, but she works with her father, who makes her a partner. So again, she gets called to a situation which is good for her because she has access as a female to certain people who are, the word is, I think it's purdah or something, where these widows, I think they're Hindu, but I'm not sure, but they exercise that where they separate from men. And there's it's a oh goodness, I'm forgetting. It's like the time of the Raj. So there's a Maharani, but it's kind of a weird situation because the actual Maharani, her husband was the Raj. Oh my goodness, my sister's gonna kill me for getting all this chopped up. But anyway, yeah, so he was, in charge, but he died, and the son, the young son, who's the new Raj. Raj, please tell me I'm getting this right. What is wrong with me, Raj? Anyway, yeah. Wait, no, I feel like I'm not getting this right. Let me just look at this for a minute. Ta ta ta. Yeah, Maharani. Yeah, the Crown Prince. They call him the Crown Prince here, so I'm just gonna call him that. So he's underage. All right. Sorry for that whole thing. I gotta learn how to edit. So he's underage, and his mother is a widow, and obviously the grandmother's a widow. The grandmother's quite bossy. So he's about 10, I think, and so there's some years before he becomes the big one. And the mother and the grandmother are at odds as to his education. One of them wants to send the boy to England for education, and the other one really doesn't want to do that. So there's a whole deal with how the British were involved, and this is how Praveen gets involved, because her British friend's father kind of hires her for this situation. So she has to go up to this place. The transportation is so backwards, being carried in this situation. There's almost no ground transportation. And so she has to deal with all that. And so you think, okay, so what is the mystery? Well, there are the previous rulers, the Raj, etc. What is wrong with me? Died in kind of, well, at least one of them, maybe two of them, died in kind of strange circumstances. And so there's a little mystery there. And so she has to broker an agreement. It's, a bit political, but she does her best, but she gets kind of embroiled in a whole intrigue situation. And she does sort of solve the mystery, but only at the last minute. So she's not really a detective. She's a lawyer who finds herself in the situation. But it's a good story. And even though I'm forgetting words for everything because I'm sick, okay? I have a cold. This is my excuse this week. I enjoyed it. I think I actually liked it better than the first one. I liked the idea, even though I liked reading about Bombay. Honestly, I really did. But I liked her taking her out of there, and I like the cultural differences again because she is a Zoroastrian, Parsi, and she's dealing with Hindus and Muslims and all kinds of situations, and she's dealing with the British. So and a possible romantic situation, and this time I like it better because it doesn't do the flashbacks that the first book did. So if you've got ahead and read the first one, whether my recommendation or your own, and you liked it, I would say read the second one. It's definitely a good one. I liked it better than the Tea House Detective for certainty. And just the description of the early 1920s in India, just, even if I can't remember the names for everything. And it goes a little more into her interest in Gandhi, which is why I'm making this joke about how I'm wrapped up. I didn't do that on purpose. But yeah, so I'm kind of curious as to what that's gonna lead into, But that's neither here nor there because it's still the early 20s. But although then again, anyway, so moving on back to the UK and France, we have the second Poirot in my recent reading endeavors, which is The Murder on the Links, and a really good sequel as it works. And I read two second books, and I read this. I started it on the train going from San Diego to Los Angeles, and it's a really good story, but I have to say that train ride is so beautiful that I was a little distracted. So I only read, in 6 hours train ride time, I only read like 50 pages, but still, it was still good train reading, and I didn't get sick on the train, which is great. And good story. So it actually starts in a train or boat. I think train, either way, with Hastings, the slightly bumbling, kind of stupid in some ways, but also he must not be completely so because Poirot quite likes him. But a little romance going on in this one too. And he runs into a mysterious woman on the way back to England, and of course he finds her later on. That's going to happen. But so basically Poirot gets called to France and takes Hastings with him by a man who has a lot of money but feels a little bit worried about something, so Poirot comes over to find that this man is dead. And a lot of other people who should have been close to him were away on vacation. It's a little confusing. His wife was found bound up, so it's a lot of, there is a lot of not just who done it, but why done it, and because it doesn't make sense. There's a lot of backstory that he used to be in South America, but does that have anything to do with it? Or he had some extramarital affairs that have anything to do with it? And then you just get into, I don't want to get into spoilers, obviously, but you get into a whole previous past life of things and people who aren't who they say they are, or who are who they say they are but used to be someone else kind of situation. The only thing is, it's a little different than what I normally remember from a lot of Poirot stories, in which he doesn't assemble everybody into a drawing room to go over his thing. He does, expostulate on the mystery, but the solving of it, but it kind of turns out in a different way. He has someone do some play acting at the end that it's like, you think you know who the bad person is, and you think the mystery is solved, and then suddenly twists and turns all over the place. And honestly, I kind of like that because it keeps you on your toes. You don't really know who the perpetrators. I knew only because I'd seen the adaptation, the David Suchet, because I watched all of those. So I'm never going to be completely surprised, I think, in most of these, but that's okay because I forget a lot of the story, so that's good. And of course, the adaptations always change a little bit of the plot or some of the characters. They may take in a little more, put people in different spots. So it's always a little bit new to me. And I really like this one. It's enough to make me keep wanting to keep going. Not as much as The Mysterious Affair at Styles, but still quite a lot. So yes, definitely read this. The next book in the sort of series, I think, is Poirot Investigates, which is a collection of short stories. I'm probably not going to read that one next time. I'm not reading it this month because it's October. I might not read it next month in November either. But whenever I next read Poirot, I'm probably not going to read that one because I'm not in the mood for short stories right now. And I have actually a whole big book of the short stories that actually has all of those stories in it. So I'm not going to get this other volume and read it when I have this other one, if that makes sense. Maybe I'll get through all of Poirot within a year or two, and then I'll go to it. Maybe. I don't know. We shall see. But, so I'll probably read, I think the next one, I could be wrong, I think the next one is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. It doesn't really matter. I don't have to read it exactly in order either, but I do have that copy. I've shown you before, that really beautiful compilation of 3 in 1 with The Murder on the Orient Express, etc. So I think I'm going to read that one. And it was very exciting this month because I feel like, even though, let's see, 1, 2, like 2.5 had a lot of London in it, which is not a problem. So it's not like I went too far away, but then I went to Bombay. And I know it's called Mumbai, but not this time. It wasn't called that. And I went to other parts of India, and I like that too, because I like to travel a little bit, and I don't want to just stick to one place either. So that is all for my tea and mystery for September. That's basically going to be my wrap up because I read other books this month, and I might talk about them in other videos, but I think this is my major wrap up. We'll see. Who knows? I always contradict myself because I am a mystery. Mysterious with my nasal cruddy nose. Anyway, this has been Taking Tea with Catherine. Have a lovely day or evening. Goodbye.